Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Iqbal's Inspirations and Insights with Fahad Khan. There's a poem in Bali Jibreel where Allama starts out by saying, Dil Soz se خالی ہے نگہباک نہیں ہے پھر اس میں عجب کیا کہ تو بےباک نہیں ہے, which translates into that your heart is devoid of passion and your sight is not pure, then there is no wonder that you no longer are bold or have assertiveness. As a psychologist, I can agree wholeheartedly here with Allama Iqbal. Part of the reason why individuals can't be assertive or bold and express themselves, especially at a time when expressing yourself is necessary, has to do with how much we are caught up in our own hedonistic drives. Now, human beings, just like the animals, have needs and desires. We have the nafs. But if we engage too much in these nafsani behaviors, and if our heart is then emptied out of passion towards doing something for a bigger cause, or if our sight is no longer pure, we are committing sins with our eyesights, then we lose the ability to be bold and to be assertive. He continues on to say, ہے ذوق تجلی بھی اسی خاک میں پنہاں غافل تو میرا صاحب ادراک نہیں ہے. He's saying that this taste of illumination is hidden inside of this dust particle, that the human beings who are created from dust contain within ourselves the ability, the potential to illuminate the world. And we have done this historically. He's saying the reason you can't do it is because you're heedless and that you're focused on just intellectual abilities, just improving your intelligence. Now, we know from Allama's other writings how he compares and contrasts, for example, aql and ishq. Right? Aql, which is obviously from intellect, and ishq, which comes from passion. That where aql can simply take you as far as planning, as far as weighing out the consequences, but what leads towards action is passion, is emotional drive. So then he says, and he's telling us why that's the case. He says, वो आंख के है सुरमۂ افرنگ से روشن पुरकार सुखन साज है नमनाक नहीं है. That an eye which contains in itself the kohol of the West, okay, it's brightened itself with what the West has given. It can be clever, it can be eloquent, because that's what the West teaches. Western ideas, which are primarily based on materialistic values, then they can only teach you how to be clever and eloquent, but not tearful, meaning tears in eyes come from what? Emotion, come from passion. That passion and emotional connection is not something that the West focuses on, because it focuses primarily on how to use certain abilities to overcome someone, how to make more money, for example, through capitalism. Then he says, کیا صوفی و ملا کو خبر میرے جنوں کی ان کا سر دامن بھی ابھی چاک نہیں ہے. That what will the Sufi or the religious folks know about my madness and what I'm trying to assess here, what I'm trying to talk about here? The hem of their clothes and their garb hasn't even been torn yet. Like they are so stuck in their ascetic values that they have moved away from action. Act that allows your passion to be utilized in this world. So they can't really connect, and they don't know much about the passion that I'm talking about, the madness that I'm referring to. Then he says, कब तक रहे महकूमी अंजम में मेरी खाक या मैं नहीं या गर्दिश افلاک नहीं है. that how long will I continue to subjugate my dust to the stars, to the movement of the stars? Because either I don't exist or the rotation of the heavens doesn't exist. That I am not merely controlled, which a lot of people think, right? This is where astrology comes in. People start to believe that stars can determine whether something will happen or won't happen. He said, if that was the case, then I have no existence. I have no point in existing. So I can't simply subjugate my existence to the rotation of the stars. And then he says, بجلی ہوں نظر کو ہو بیاباں پہ ہے میری, میرے لیے شایاں خاشاک نہیں ہے. That I'm like the lightning, and I'm looking at, and my sight, and I'm gazing at the mountains and the deserts. Like, lightning doesn't only strike at one place. You can have a lightning storm in the middle of the ocean, you can have a lightning storm on top of a mountain, or you can have it in the desert. And so I'm like that lightning. I'm not bound by a specific type of place. And it is not suitable for me to just be caught up in rubbish. Khashak. Like that lowliness, to be a form of trash that gets blown by wind and that has no value, that has no power. That's not who I am. Why? And he ends with these beautiful lines. He says, عالم ہے فقط مومن جانباز کی میراث, مومن نہیں جو صاحب لولاک نہیں ہے. He says this world is only the inheritance of a believer who is what? Daring. A believer who has passion. A believer who is not just focused on thinking and planning, but action. That believer becomes the owner. And this world belongs to that believer. If we saw in the past, and Allama refers to historically the Sahaba and those who came shortly afterwards, how they were so passionate, how they didn't just sit back and think and plan, but rather they acted, and those were the ones who were able to capture the world. So the world becomes an inheritance to that believer who is daring, and a true believer is not the one who just says La ilaha illallah and that's it, but rather he is what Allama is calling Sahib Lolak. He is the companion. He's the owner of Lolak. Now, Lolak is a term that Allama is taken from a saying which is oftentimes attributed as a hadith. Lawlaka lima khalaqtul aflaak, that Allah said to the Prophet ﷺ that if it hadn't been for you, I would not have created the universe. Now, the muhaddithin really don't think it's a hadith, but the importance of that the Prophet ﷺ was the most beloved of the creation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are the believers of that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that we are the sahib of him. Lawlak means that, if it hadn't been for you, meaning what Allama is trying to allude here is that this universe was created and the most valuable individual in this universe was our beloved Prophet, and we have his sharia, we have his teachings, we are part of his ummah. So a true believer sees himself as the companion, as the believer, as the follower of that Prophet who has so much value. And if we held on to that belief, and if we recognize and realize our value through that association, then we become the inheritors of that legacy and of this world. So again, another beautiful poem by Allama Iqbal, which tries to instill this idea that if we want to be successful in this world, then not only do we have to purify ourselves with our hearts, purify our gaze, not only do we have to recognize how certain ideologies and values, especially those that come from the West, affect us in a very harmful way, and sometimes our own traditions and some factions within our own selves that can also affect us in a harmful way, but then also recognize our true values, our true value of those who believe and follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So inshallah, Allah give us that tawfiq. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.